Welcome to this first lecture on HTML hyperlinks. In this lecture and the few that follow it, we'll look at the anchor tag to see how we can add text-based hyperlinks to our web pages. Hyperlinks are created using the A tag, and they create clickable elements which can take the user to another location or do certain things when they're clicked. Given they're responsible for linking all web pages to one another, they form the very backbone of the internet's navigation system. Hyperlinks can take many forms, from basic text to fancy images. They're used to perform many functions, such as navigation menus, icons, buttons, and much more. When reviewing this tag, we'll look at the structure of the tag itself to see how, when, and where it can be used. We'll look at the attributes it supports and examine what each of them do. Attributes that control things like the link's destination or action, the target browser window, and also any tooltip text. We'll also explore the different actions that hyperlinks can perform when they're clicked. Actions such as taking the user to a particular location within the current web page, taking them to a different web page or a different website altogether, downloading a file, triggering a new email, or making a phone call. All this information will be split over a few mini hyperlink lectures, but by the end of them, you'll know everything you need to use this tag confidently in any web page. Let's jump in and look at the structure of this tag. We'll start by opening one of our blank HTML files. I've included one of these in the course downloads under the hyperlink folder from the HTML tag section. The file you need to open is called blank HTML file. First, we'll add some text to our web page so we can turn some of it into a hyperlink. Let's go ahead and add this to the body tag. I'll enter the text, click here to go to Google. If we run this in a browser, we just see plain text, and as we'd expect, nothing happens when I click on it. Let's go back to our file and add an anchor tag around that text. The bit that I want to turn into a hyperlink is the part that says click here. So I'll create an opening A tag before these words and then a closing A tag after them. Now that we have our anchor tag in place, we can start by giving it some attributes to tell the browser what it should do when we click on it. The most important attribute here is href. This is the hyperlink reference, and it tells the browser where to go or what to do when clicked. For now, we're creating a hyperlink which will take the user to a different web page, but we'll come back to some of the other actions a little later. When we click on this hyperlink, I want it to take me to Google. I'll therefore add the URL google.com to the href attribute. We covered absolute and relative URLs in the previous lecture, when we explored the HTML link tag. So if you missed that, I recommend going back and taking a look at that lecture now. The URL that I'm using here is an absolute path as it refers to a third-party website. Let's save this and run it. We can see that the words click here are now underlined and show a hand-style mouse pointer when I hover over them. When I click the words, I'm also taken to Google. That's great, but what if I want Google to load up in a new window? This is a common requirement as you may not want the user to completely leave your website. It may be better to keep your web page loaded and load the new site in another window. To do this, we simply add another attribute called target. This tells the browser where to load the new page. The valid values for this attribute are _self, which is the default setting, _blank, _parent, and _top. Visual Studio Code provides a handy pop-up description of each of these values, so feel free to pause the video here if you need to take a moment to read about each of them. For this example, I'm going to use a target of _blank as I want Google to be loaded in a brand new window. Let's add that now and then we'll see what it looks like. When I click on the hyperlink, I get a new window with Google in it, but my original web page is still loaded in this tab here. Before we move on to further lectures which cover the other hyperlink actions, I just want to mention the title attribute. This will pop up in various lectures as it's a generic attribute which can be added to many HTML tags. However, it's particularly useful for things like hyperlinks, as it gives the user a small pop-up tip which we can use to tell them what will happen when they click on the link. Let's add a title attribute now so that we can see how it works. I'll enter "Go to Google." When I run this, we can see that this short tip is displayed when I hover over the link. It's always useful to give the user a heads up like this before they click so they know what to expect. Okay, so far we've covered the basic anchor tag and looked how we can link to a web page from another website. In the next lecture, I'll look at the in-page anchors and explain how we can jump from a specific point to another on the page.